Alright guys, and welcome back to the channel, and today I will be giving you my early predictions for UFC 302 live June 1st from Newark, New Jersey, and I absolutely cannot wait to get into this card. I did get a brand new microphone and I'm testing it out for the first time, so hopefully everything sounds nice and crispy and clean. We are going to move on to Tatsuro Taira versus Joshua Van, and this is an absolutely awesome fight. Tatsuro Taira has been absolutely incredible since he's been in the UFC. He is so well-rounded, he's so explosive, amazing striking, amazing jiu-jitsu. I mean, very dynamic, very well-rounded everywhere, but Joshua Van has been incredibly impressive. I love this kid. He comes forward, he sets a pace, he gets in your face, he has beautiful boxing, beautiful defense, and he has some of the best mix-up combination shots you will see from a young fighter. He mixes it up to the head, to the body, rips beautiful body shots, moves his head well, presses you, just puts that pace on you, and this is such a good fight for those reasons. It's so close, and a huge part of me wants to pick Joshua Van for this upset, because he's just, I mean, he's got that dog in him. But Tatsuro Taira has just been streaking. I believe he's 15-0. The kid is just looking amazing, and he's mixing it up so well. It is such a tough fight, and I think it's going to be one of the best fights of the night. But I am going to slightly side with Tatsuro Taira by decision. I think he will be able to mix up the dynamic attacks just enough. He's going to have some takedowns, some grappling. He might even possibly crack and hurt Joshua Van with a shot. He's got sneaky power, and I could just see Tatsuro Taira just being lightly, very lightly, a little more well-rounded in this fight and just barely edging Joshua Van, and I could see him picking up like a 29-28, maybe a split decision. But I mean, he could come out there and just look amazing and just maybe dominate Van. But Van is so good. I really do love both of these kids. But I'm going to go Tatsuro Taira by a hair on decision for one of the most exciting strike fest delight fights of the night. Moving on up, we are looking at Niko Price, the hybrid Price, versus Alex Morono. And this is an easy pick for me. I am not on the Niko Price train at all. I think Niko Price is terrible. I mean, he is 1-5 in his last 6 fights. One of those is a draw, but hey, it's a draw. It's not a loss, but it's not a win. Doesn't look good when you have all these other losses stacked on top of it. And Niko Price is just not good. I mean, he's awkward. He's got an awkward fight style. He's very inconsistent. He's not a dependable fighter. He gets in there. He makes poor mistakes. You know, when he fought Robbie Lawler, immediately just got like in a one-armed clinch with him and just started eating uppercuts, didn't pull away, didn't try to block him, and got dropped and slumped for it. And Alex Morono is just, man, he's a well-rounded problem. You know, he's not super dangerous in any one area, but Alex Morono sets a pace. He's always moving. He's always coming forward, you know, and he just puts it on you. And he's got good striking. He has good, just, you know, nasty surprise jiu-jitsu out of nowhere sometimes. And I think Alex Morono is just going to put a pace and a nice, well-rounded pressure on Niko Price and just cleanly outstrike him. I think Alex Morono easily takes it 30-27 on the cards. And I think once Niko Price takes this loss, they just need to cut him. He needs to be done. There's no point in holding on to a guy like this that's so inconsistent and just not good overall. So Alex Morono will be the official pick by decision. Moving on up, we are at Roman Kopylov versus Cesar Almeida, and this is another easy pick for me, man. I mean, Roman Kopylov has looked absolutely awesome in his UFC run so far, outside of his loss to Anthony Hernandez, which was a very tough test for him. Anthony Hernandez is, I mean, just becoming a problem in the division with his grappling and his jiu-jitsu. I mean, he's just a nightmare. His cardio, when you have elite-level cardio like that, and you have elite jiu-jitsu, you're going to be a problem for a lot of strikers. And I had a hard, strong feeling he was going to be a problem for Roman Kopylov in that fight, even though Kopylov has just been a killer on the feet. And sure enough, he was able to get past Kopylov's striking, the power, put that pressure on him, get him tired, take him down, and submit him. And Cesar Almeida, I mean, is 36, almost 37 years old. The last guy he fought, Dylan Budka, nothing to write home about. I mean, very low entry-level guy. And I think this is a bad mismatch. I mean, I think Cesar Almeida is probably going to come out, look okay for maybe about a minute or so, And then Kopylov's going to start to find that timing. He's going to start finding those power shots. And I think he's going to wind up TKOing Cesar Almeida in the second round. Might TKO him right at the end of the first, but I think he will eventually catch the slower, more unexperienced MMA fighter. And I believe Cesar Almeida, he only has like 6, but yeah, he's 5-0. 5-0 in his MMA record. You know, nothing super impressive. He's older. Kopylov is still streaking, despite the loss to Anthony Hernandez, and I think Kopylov gets back on track and knocks Cesar Almeida out. Moving on, we are going up to Philip Rowe and Jake Matthews, and this is such an interesting fight. Very, very tough, interesting fight. Jake Matthews is very well-rounded, one of those super, just well-rounded, tough Australian fighters, which they are just known for and bred in that country. But Philip Rowe is a nasty striker, and he's very, very long. Philip Rowe is going to have the longest reach on this card. Philip Rowe is going to have an 8-inch reach on Jake Matthews, which is a problem. And if you try to fight Philip Rowe at distance, at range, he is going to meticulously pick you apart, and he is hard to get in. He's hard to get in on. You know, in the Neil Magny fight, Neil Magny was able to kind of neutralize him because Neil Magny matched him in size and length. And he was just able to kind of get in, and just with all that experience he had, out-edge Philip Rowe. But Jake Matthews is going to be the shorter fighter in this fight. He's going to be at a big reach disadvantage. And it is a very tough fight because as long as this fight is on the feet, Philip Rowe could wind up picking Jake Matthews apart. But Jake Matthews has power on the feet. He has knocked guys out. He's got great jiu-jitsu. He's very well-rounded. But in this fight, even though it's very tough, it's a very tough 50-50, I am going to side with Jake Matthews in this fight. I think Jake Matthews has a little more upside overall. I think he's a little more well-rounded, and I think the key to him winning this fight is mixing in takedowns. He is going to have to mix in takedowns to probably win this fight because he is going to be at a big disadvantage on the feet, staying on the outside, trying to get in on Philip Rowe. So if Jake Matthews can mix in some takedowns and some grappling and some clinch control on the cage, I think he can get Philip Rowe down and start to take these rounds. I'm going to say Jake Matthews takes it 29-28 on the cards. He might possibly finish Philip Rowe, maybe submits him, but I don't really see it. I think it's just going to be a good, well-rounded fight on the feet until Jake Matthews hopefully starts mixing in some takedowns and some grappling to start to steal the rounds. So I am taking Jake Matthews by decision. That is the official pick. And we are moving up to, and these are going to be a little offset here on the two cards on the UFC side, but we are looking at Grant Dawson and Joe Solecki, and this is a fight between two submission grapplers with very solid stand-up. Grant Dawson, you know, was on a nice little streak there, and then Bobby Green just knocked the dog shit out of him, shocked the world. I mean, what an absolute upset by Bobby Green to KO Grant Dawson like that when he was just on this just hot prospect winning streak. And then Joe Solecki's kind of had a tough time. Very good grappling, very strong on top, but Joe Solecki's a little up and down. And I think in this fight, Grant Dawson is going to get back on track. I think he's going to be the better striker. I think he's going to be more explosive. I think he's going to be faster, and I think he's going to have the edge on the ground. He has a good chunk of his submission wins that are out-edging Joe Solecki and his submission wins, and they're just more consistent. Grant Dawson has a ton. I mean, I think he has like 13, 14 wins by submission. And I think in this fight, Grant Dawson, even though it's going to be very interesting on the ground, and I think Joe Solecki's going to do well with his defense, but I think Grant Dawson is just going to control him on the ground, outstrike him on the feet. He could possibly submit Joe Solecki, but I don't think he will because Joe Solecki's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I think he will fend off the submissions, but I think Grant Dawson will control him on the ground. I think he will be on top, landing shots, getting the better position, and I see Grant Dawson just taking this in the control on the ground for a pretty clean 30-27 on the cards against Joe Solecki and getting back on track. Moving on up, these cards are all mixed up. They are not in the correct order on either side of the screen, so it'll be a little jumpy. But we are moving on up to Mickey Gall versus Basil Hafez. And this is just absolutely crazy to me because it's like Mickey Gall never fights. The kid fights like once a year, and right when you forget about him, you go, yeah, Mickey Gall, they cut him a long time ago, and then he just pops up out of nowhere, and you're like, what the fuck? Didn't they cut you like 2 or 3 times? Well, how do you just randomly keep showing up once a year? So it's really weird that Mickey Gall is even still in the UFC, but Mickey Gall is just not good. I mean, that hype train got derailed a long time ago. The kid has good jiu-jitsu, but on the feet, he's just, I mean, he's not good. He gets caught, he gets knocked out. He's long, lanky, kind of clunky, and Basil Hafez is pretty new to the UFC, but one thing that this guy has that absolutely impressed me is that he had a very, very close competitive fight with Jack Della Maddalena, and that is saying a lot. Jack Della Maddalena is one of the best strikers in the UFC right now. The guy has, I mean, dynamite in his hands, one of the best combination strikers in the game. I mean, he is a problem for anybody, and Basil Hafez actually took rounds from him, took a round from him, almost took a second round from him, made it very competitive, landed shots on Jack. And that is saying a lot for a guy that's just coming in, going up against a guy who's been in the UFC for a little while, you know, picking up big wins. I mean, Jack Della Maddalena just beat Gilbert Gilbert Burns. Good Lord. I don't know why I was mixing that up for a minute. Gilbert Burns, you know, what an amazing comeback win he had in that fight after breaking his arm, you know, getting taken down, and comes back and finishes Gilbert like that. So it was very, very impressive. And I think Basil Hafez is just going to knock the shit out of Mickey Gall. I think they're going to exchange. Mickey Gall is going to leave his long chin and neck up and just his everything hanging up out there in the air, and Basil Hafez is just going to crack him, hurt him, rock him, and TKO him. So I have Hafez knocking Mickey Gall out in the first round by KO. Pretty easy prediction there. Now we are moving on up to Jocelyn Edwards versus Eileen Perez, and I won't spend a ton of time on this fight, but a very interesting matchup. Jocelyn Edwards, pretty good kickboxer on the feet, nothing special, not a lot of power. I mean, nothing crazy going on in any one particular area. Josh and Eileen Perez has looked very impressive, very solid, picking up a lot of solid unanimous decision wins. And I think it'll be a pretty interesting fight. Nothing crazy. It's not going to win a bonus or anything. But I do see Eileen Perez edging Jocelyn Edwards in this fight. I think she's going to be the better striker on the feet. I think she's going to be a little busier. She might mix in some takedowns. She might mix in some cage control. But I think she's going to be a little more well-rounded in this fight. And I just see her taking the rounds on Jocelyn. Jocelyn's a little slow-paced, you know, just kind of popping shots out there. And I think Eileen is just going to pick up a clean 30-27 win here. Moving on up, we are looking at Kevin the Trailblazer Holland versus Michael Oleksiejczuk, and this is a very, very interesting fight. Michael Oleksiejczuk coming off the crazy, devastating quick loss to Michel Pereira. I mean, got hit, got choked out. I mean, got dominated. And Kevin Holland, unfortunately, coming off the loss to MVP. So, in this fight, I mean, it's going to be a great, interesting fight on the feet. Michael Oleksiejczuk comes forward, a lot of head movement, good boxing, very good boxing. But Kevin Holland, I love him, man. Just a fun-loving guy, talks shit at you in the fight, but it's all good and fun. Long, dangerous striking, nasty power in his hands, and Kevin Holland has some of the best underrated jiu-jitsu in the UFC. I mean, his ground game is so underrated, and right when you almost forget about it, I mean, he's dropping and submitting Michael Chiesa, who's, you know, was one of the best submission fighters in the UFC. So much experience. And he's just, you know, right when you think like Kevin Holland's just nasty on the feet and that's his game. No, he drops guys, grabs their neck, gets them in dorses, gets them in ninja chokes, Bravo chokes, and winds up tapping guys. And you're like, man, his jiu-jitsu is so solid. And I think in this fight, Kevin Holland is going to be a problem for Michael Oleksiejczuk on the feet. I think his reach is going to be a problem. His speed is going to be a problem. And I see him cracking and hurting Michael Oleksiejczuk somewhere in the second round, dropping him, getting on the ground with him, going to half guard or something, wrapping up maybe a dorse, grabbing a guillotine, you know, rolling him and just grabbing that neck. And I think he is going to choke Michael Oleksiejczuk out. I think he's just going to be the cleaner, faster, longer striker. Holland is going to have a 7-inch reach advantage in this fight, and I think that is going to do wonders for him in the stand-up, at the range striking, and eventually Michael Oleksiejczuk is going to walk into a hard shot, get hurt, and Holland's either going to knock him out or get him to the ground and wind up tapping him. Could pick up a decision, could win a 30-27, maybe a 29-28 decision. Maybe Michael gets in there, makes a round close. But I think Kevin is going to just crack him, hurt him, either knock him out or drop him in the second round. But we are going Kevin Holland by second round sub. And the next fight on the card, we are looking at Randy Rude Boy Brown versus Eliza Zaleski dos Santos. Very interesting fight. Excellent, just striker's delight on the feet. But I think in this fight, we are going to see Randy Brown start to enter his prime. I think his last fight was incredibly impressive. What he did to... oh my God, I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head. The older Russian fighter. I knew it just a minute ago, but knocked him out with one shot, And Randy Brown has been very consistently good. He's had a loss or two here in the past, but outside of that, he's been just getting better and better, and he's so long. He is going to have a 5-inch reach on Zaleski dos Santos in this fight, and I think the way he looked in his last fight is just screaming. He is entering his prime. That striking is coming together. That power is starting to really build and find its home, that accuracy. And I think Randy Brown is going to be so sharp in this fight, I think he's going to knock Zaleski out in the second round, catch him with a nice just laser bomb from distance, hurt him, crack him, and drop him, TKO him. And if not, then Randy Brown takes the decision 30-27 easily, just being the better, busier, cleaner, more accurate striker. But I'm going to say Randy Brown catches the aging Zaleski with a nasty right hand and just drops him and TKOs him. Moving on, we are looking at a very interesting matchup in the returning Jailton Almeida versus Alexander Romanov, and this is a battle between two big submission grapplers. This is a very, very even, interesting fight. Both of these guys have very similar fighting styles. They're coming out to grapple you, take you down, get you to the ground, wear you out, and try to submit you. And it's a very, very even, interesting fight. Now, I am not on the Jailton Almeida hype train at all. I predicted and called that his hype train would get derailed against Curtis Blades because he comes out, he looks to grapple, looks to take you down. All of his fights were real quick, getting his submissions in the first round. But I looked at the Curtis Blades fight and went, Curtis is an excellent wrestler. Curtis has excellent striking. He's very well-rounded. Curtis is very good. This is a huge test for Jailton Almeida, and I think Jailton's going to get exposed because his striking has not been that impressive on the feet, and a lot of his fights outside of the Derek Lewis fight had not gone out of the first round, and he looked very unimpressive in the Derek Lewis fight. Yes, he won that fight, and yes, he dominated Derek, but he took him down for 25 minutes and just sat on him like a dying walrus and wouldn't finish him. And that fight just left a bad taste in my mouth. It's like, yeah, it's Derek Lewis. His takedown defense is horrible. Any heavyweight with some grappling is going to get him down. But if you're this high level of a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, you should have tapped Derek in the first round or second round. Why did you just sit on him and just play with him and just kind of and not do anything? And Alexander Romanov is a giant grizzly bear. This guy is, he's big, he's thick. He is a tough, just elephant of a man of power coming at you. But even though I'm not on the Jailton Almeida hype train, I do think this is a fight he can get back on track in. I think he is going to be a little more explosive. I think he's going to be faster. I think he's going to be more athletic. And I think they're just going to collide like two grizzly bears out in the wild. And Jailton's just going to be quicker. He's going to get position on Romanov. Now, Alexander Romanov has never been submitted, and a lot of Jailton's submissions come in the first round. I don't think he is going to submit Romanov in this fight. I think he is going to do what he did to Derek Lewis. I think he's going to come out, grapple, exchange, clinch with Romanov for a little bit, and then takedowns are going to start to happen. And I think Jailton's just going to get on top of Romanov and just kind of beat him up on the ground, just kind of pitter-patter, drop shots on him, go to side control, maybe get mount, pitter-patter, pitter-patter. Romanov's going to get out, go back to half guard, and there's just going to be a lot of positional changes of just Romanov defending. But I think Jailton's just going to just take him down, control him, get better position, beat on him for 3 rounds, and take an easy, clean 30-27. But this is a battle of the big submission grappler grizzly bears, and it's very interesting. Romanov has a chance, if Almeida gasses, but I think Almeida does get back on track here, just being the faster, more explosive, athletic guy. And moving on, we are at our co-main event of the evening. And I absolutely cannot wait for this fight. Sean Strickland is one of my favorite fighters. I absolutely love Sean Strickland. I've been on the Sean Strickland train way before he even became champion. I mean, one of the best voices in MMA, and I don't care what anyone says. He's all about, fuck cancel culture, speak your mind. He has that great, just offend anybody sense of humor. I love him to death. And this is such an interesting matchup. But we have Sean Strickland versus Paulo Costa, and this is going to be, a barn burner, striker's delight of a fight. It's going to be in your face, back and forth exchanging, and it's a very, very fun, interesting matchup. And in this fight, even though Paulo Costa, Costa is up and down, but Paulo brings it. Paulo comes forward. Paulo, fucking throws shots. He tries to hunt you down. He tries to get in there and just, tries to finish you early. And you saw what he did with Luke Rockhold, just pressing him and just beating on him and hurting him. But Sean Strickland is the man. Sean Strickland is probably the best pure boxer in the UFC. I mean, his defense is perfect. That Philly shell, he rolls with shots so beautifully. He puts that pressure on you. He waits, and he just has endless cardio, presses you, gets you tired, and just starts to unload. And then Sean has random power. He's knocked guys out before. It's not super common, but Sean does have this random power to put you away, but he reserves it. He waits to get you tired and find that opening and just starts cracking you like what he did to Brendan Allen. But, Paulo Costa's going to come forward too. Sean's going to come forward, and it's going to be a very interesting, fun fight. But I am going to side with Sean Strickland. I think Sean is going to have the better defense. I don't think Paulo's going to hit him that cleanly. Sean rolls with shots very well, and then Sean, when he exchanges and he throws his shots out, he finds his timing. He finds the chin. He touches you with the jabs. He touches you with the ones and the twos. And I think it's going to be, a fun, could be a close fight. But I think Sean Strickland is going to be good enough defensively and good enough offensively to look good for the judges, to get around Paulo's power shots and out-edge him to a 30-27 on the cards, and he will get back on track from the loss to Dricus du Plessis. And so Sean Strickland by decision is my official pick. And now we are at the main event of the evening. And what an incredible main event this is. We have Islam Makhachev, Khabib Nurmagomedov 2.0 versus Dustin the Diamond Poirier. And man, this is just a feel-good, just full bursting heart moment for MMA fans across the world, because this is Dustin Poirier's most likely his last chance at the title. This is his third title shot. He's getting older, and if he doesn't win this one, this is probably going to be the end of the road when it comes to title shots for Dustin. And every MMA fan on this planet, every UFC fan on this planet, if you've been watching this sport for more than 15 years, everybody loves Dustin. I mean, you can't not like the guy. He's an incredible fighter, one of the best fighters of all time, always making it to a title shot, but just falling short of holding that belt above his head. And it's always so heartbreaking for him because you love him. He's a good guy. He does charity. He has a beautiful family, beautiful wife, beautiful daughter. You want to see him win that belt and hold it above his head one day. But he has just had the most unfortunate road of every time he gets a title shot, he fights a deadly Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighter with excellent wrestling, or a fighter from Dagestan with fucking freight train wrestling that he just can't stop, who also has excellent Brazilian jiu-jitsu. You look at Charles Oliveira, you look at Khabib, and now we're looking at Islam, who is Khabib 2.0. And the crushing thing about this fight is I want to pick Dustin Poirier so bad. I would love nothing more than to see this man shock the world, knock Islam out, hold that belt above his head with tears streaming down his face, and his little girl sitting front row. He said his daughter will be front row for this fight. The first fight she's ever been to watch her dad. And there would be nothing more, heart-pouring, heart-melting than to see this man on his third time as the charm fight knock Islam out, hold that belt above his head, tears streaming down his face, and his wife and child at cage side just losing it. I would tear up. I would get emotional if that happened. And I want nothing more than for that to happen for Dustin Poirier. If there's any man that deserves it, it's Dustin Poirier. And if Dustin beats Islam on June 1st, that man could hold that title above his head with tears running down his face and retire right then and there, and would have the most perfect storybook ending career in UFC history. He wouldn't even need to defend the belt. Dustin has done enough. He has given us enough of his blood, sweat, and tears in these amazing fights over the years to win that belt and walk away happy. But unfortunately, I don't think Dustin is going to have the tools to stop Islam. I just don't think it's going to happen. I want it to happen. I want it to happen more than anything right now. But I think Islam is just a fucking Terminator right now. And I think eventually Dustin might have a good round. You know, he might even catch Islam with some shots, maybe hurt him a little bit, maybe get him, oh man, Dustin's getting it, and we're all getting goosebumps. But eventually Islam is going to close that distance. Islam is going to start throwing shots up top, fake, shoot a double leg, get him against the cage, drag him down. Islam is going to start to get that grappling going. He's going to start to back Dustin up. And when he gets in on those hips, you're just not going to stop it. And I just don't see Dustin having the tools or having enough game-changing things in his camp to stop the just inevitable takedowns from Islam. And I honestly think Islam is going to eventually get it to the ground, and I think Dustin can survive at least 2 rounds because he's been submitted in the 3rd round in 2 of his fights, in both title fights. He holds out for a little bit, but I think Islam is eventually going to get in on Dustin striking, get him up against the cage, get in on his hips, get him down, and start to get to the back, and start to hunt, and start to drag, and press, and wear on Dustin. And even though Dustin's cardio is so good, I mean, these Dagestan wrestlers, when they get on top of you, it's a different kind of drain. It is a different kind of cardio drain. They're smothering iron blanket pressure. And I think Islam is just going to eventually find his way to Dustin's back, wrap up his neck and choke him out. And it's going to be so heartbreaking for Dustin to lose a 3rd title fight in his last title fight in front of his family. And I hate even thinking about it, but I do have Islam Makhachev beating Dustin Poirier by submission in the 3rd round. And if this was any other fighter, I would be picking Dustin. Anybody else. But Islam is Khabib 2.0. He's the better, more well-rounded version of Khabib, more finishes, gonna pass his legacy. And hey, Khabib is $3 million in debt to the Russian government, so he might have to come back to wrestling soon to fucking make up that debt and get some money back. So Khabib's in some trouble right now, but I do think, heartbreakingly, Dustin is going to lose this fight. And thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in to this prediction video. If you liked what you heard today, please like and subscribe to the channel. It massively helps me out just with the algorithm to get my passion and knowledge out there. And, you know, please subscribe, like, and I will see you at my predictions for UFC 303. Take care.